We are here because Senate Bill 140 was passed and signed into law. It's now Act 40. I believe this to be an unconstitutional encroachment on the power of the people of Philadelphia to select who gets to make prosecutorial decisions. First, I want to clear up a few things. The bill was suggested to only apply to SEPTA, to crimes that happen on SEPTA trains. Even if that was the case, I still think it would be wrong. But in fact, it goes well beyond that. It goes to the point of it potentially could be construed to give prosecutorial authority everywhere within a 500-yard radius of a SEPTA station, which would eviscerate the ability of the district attorney to make prosecutorial decisions. It creates superseding jurisdiction, meaning that the jurisdiction of a special prosecutor, an unelected person, would supersede that of the DA. We have a chart that was produced by Senate Democrats. The areas in yellow are all the places that are within 500 yards of a SEPTA station. If it were construed that we're within 500 yards, only the places where there are white on the map, and you notice there's not very much, would be the places where the special prosecutor wouldn't apply. I'll point out, most of that's Fairmount Park and the Tenneco Wildlife Preserve and the floodplain around the Delaware River. Not a lot of people live in places where you literally have to be standing in water in order for the prosecutorial authority to apply. The problem, I can get into more legalese about how we get about those conclusions. I'm sure it's going to be litigated, at least it should be. Also want to point out that now, of the six, this bill was written so that it only applies in the city and county of Philadelphia. Why is that significant? Well, we're not just a big city. We're the only majority-minority county in the state. So what the General Assembly has suggested now, and the makers of this bill suggested, is that in the only county that's majority black, brown, and non-white folks, that we can't be trusted to select who makes prosecutorial decisions. That has a desperate impact. We are a suspect class. It is blatantly unconstitutional, and it is wrong to take away prosecutorial discretion from the voters of Philadelphia. We should get to choose how cases are prosecuted and who exercises that discretion. The citizens of Philadelphia have overwhelmingly voted for D.A. Krasner. This bill is unconstitutional. Beyond that, it is unworkable. There are a whole bunch of provisions in it around how a decision gets made. Does the district attorney have to ask for permission from the prosecutor first? It's convoluted. It's poorly drafted. It disparately impacts the only majority black and brown county. It takes away the voting rights of people of Philadelphia to make those decisions. It is overly broad because while it professes to just deal with SEPTA issues, it goes well beyond that. It is unconstitutional and I believe should not be enforced. But one thing's for sure, this is not just about what's happening on SEPTA trains or buses. This goes well beyond that. This is an attack on the people of Philadelphia's right to vote. It is limited, not throughout all of SEPTA, because SEPTA goes well beyond Philadelphia, only to the city and county of Philadelphia, which limits it only to the minority county of the Commonwealth. And it is unconstitutional and I believe should not be enforced. And so with that, I will yield to the district attorney.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. I woke up this morning and the cover of the newspaper was that Joe Biden is being impeached by Republicans who say they have no evidence of a crime. They have no evidence of corruption. Does that sound familiar to you? The Philadelphia District Attorney was impeached a while ago. Why? For no crime and for no corruption. And that effort failed. The Commonwealth Court at that time ruled, you can't do that. It is an attack on democracy. It is an assault on people's right to vote. That case is under consideration at this time in the Supreme Court. But what came next? Well, what came next, frankly, is predictable. What came next is the erasure of 155,102 votes in the city of Philadelphia Those are people who supported the current district attorney of Philadelphia. What was also erased were the 60,000 votes against. Those votes don't count either. Let us understand what is happening here. In only one county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the biggest city, the most diverse city, the one that is overwhelmingly Democratic votes, in that one city, a Republican-led measure has just erased 155,102 votes for the current DA, and the idea is to replace that person's authority with the authority of an appointed individual who may not even be a Philadelphian, who may not at all meet with the requirements of these voters. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is an attack on democracy. This is normalizing the erasure of Philadelphia votes. This is what people who want to be dictators do. And who do we hear recently saying he'd like to be dictator for a day? Oh, well, as it turns out, Donald Trump, who happens to, and he hasn't said this before, so obviously he's testing the waters one more time. We are talking about the normalization of dictatorship. We're talking about the normalization of Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Smith and Mr. Watson, who all went to the polls to vote, having their vote erased and being told that their votes will not count when the Republican majority says so. This has to be rejected. It never should have passed. It never should have been signed into law by our Democratic governor. That never should have happened. And the Attorney General, who surely knows this is completely unconstitutional and is the erasure of 155,000 votes, who surely knows that this is unconstitutional, should do the right thing. She should say it's unconstitutional and refuse to enforce it, as is her duty, as was this governor's duty when he was the Attorney General. And we will take it from there. Now, having said that, I want to make sure you understand something else. This is happening all over the United States. It is about votes. It is not actually about me. It is about votes. Go to Georgia. What you'll find out in Georgia is some of their elected officials, for the very first time, are subject to removal from office by unelected officials. Go to California, where the Republicans there can't stop with the recall elections of the governor, of the prosecutor, of the other prosecutor. Go to Virginia, where the same kind of tactics are being used. This gets real simple. There are people in the MAGA Republican Party who know they will not exist if people's votes are counted for the next 10 years. They know that. This is a minority party that has outsized power because the rules of voting are stacked against them, and they are desperate to hang on to that power by eliminating votes, especially Philadelphia votes, especially Detroit votes, especially the votes of people who live in big cities who are unlikely to support MAGA for 100 good reasons in swing states. That is what's going on here. This is about the grand theft of your votes, and it's not a little thing in a democracy. It is a big, big thing. I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill. I will fight for those votes no matter who the votes are cast for, and I would always accept the outcome of a free, final, and fair election. But I will die on this hill. We will not allow 155,000 people who voted for this DA and 60,000 people who voted against to be erased. We will not allow that. And trust me, there is an army of people standing behind me who have been blowing up my phone since this thing went through, and they are outraged because Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones and Mr. Watson's votes should always count. And they shouldn't just count if you're from Center County. They should count if you're from Philadelphia. Thank you very much.